Turn our attention to rugby. Alan Quinlan is with us this morning. Alan, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning, lads. Yeah, good. Thanks, Joe.
It's the start of Six Nations Week. I started the conversation, or finished the conversation last week about how optimistic you were feeling about Ireland ahead of the Six Nations. The time is telescoping. Are you getting more and more optimistic or more pessimistic as we head towards kickoff?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it depends on the team is selected. And look, the team that will be selected, there's still question marks about the ability and the form of these players. Can they deliver? Can they reignite themselves? A lot of them have played well with their provinces in recent times. And can Ireland change the way they play and get their mojo back that they had in 2018, their accuracy around the breakdown, their pace, tempo, all that kind of stuff? Or will they be physically stopped or under pressure or put under pressure by the opposition? I think, look, Wales first up, I think, is if they start well in that game, it's very obvious. If they get an away win there, they've got France and Italy at home. You could, after 3 rounds, you could have 3 wins, full of confidence, building your game. The Six Nations can be tricky at times because you've a short kind of preparation time for all the teams to prepare and get up and running, and sometimes you can be rusty at the start of it. So it's a very difficult game, and Wales are under so much pressure with the performance they had in last year's Six Nations and November. So I don't know, Jared. Somewhere in the middle. You can't get too excited and think Ireland are going to have a brilliant Six Nations, given what we've seen in the last kind of 18 months to 2 years from the team. But they're good enough. I think if they develop their game and they get some pace into it, they have players who can perform and really hurt the opposition. You know, you think of get the ball to Ringrose, Larmour, Earls, Keenan. These guys, they're exciting. They're full of energy, enthusiasm, and they can score tries and make line breaks. And hopefully, but the big emphasis is going to be on our halfbacks. I think. You know, Sexton and Murray, if they play well, Ireland will be in a good place. But they're well capable of going to Wales for sure and winning there. But if they were to lose that one, you know, it puts them in a tough position going forward.
What are you looking for from Conor Murray this week to see if he's in form or not?
Just a bit of zip to his game, particularly around his passing. He gets to blame a lot when you know we go back to these box kicks on and the game slows right down, and he's had that criticism from Munster, and Ireland have had it a bit in the last couple of years. So look, it's obviously part of the game plan. So what will Mike Cat be saying? What does he want from the team, from his back line and the head coach Andy Farrell? Where to attack, where to move the ball? Sometimes, of course, you have to kick, and the kicking is a really important part of the game, but it's the type of kicks we have. I'd like to see Johnny Sexton kick out of hand a little bit more rather than slowing it down and using this box kick option all the time. I've said that for a long time. A lot of the teams do it. England, you know, get all the plaudits, deservedly so, in the last kind of 12 to 14 months, and they've been incredibly good. They probably should have won a World Cup. They've been the dominant side, and they're a level above the other Six Nations teams. They kick an incredible amount as well. And it's, you know, when you're dominating games and you're on the front foot and you're ahead in the scoreboard, bad kicks can be viewed as good kicks because you're turning the opposition around. But when you're chasing games and there's a little bit of frustration there about you know, the way we're playing, I think so they've got to get that balance right. Of course, you've got to kick out of your own half and not mess around there too much, and it's an important part of the game. So I just love to see a bit of zip in Conor. I think he's you know, his form has been pretty good, but I'd like to see a little bit more, bit of sniping from him, and crisper passing.
Do you think it'd be within Johnny Sexton's rights to go to the coaching staff and say, I want to kick a little bit more in open play? Or does the onus have to be on the coaching staff here if you're going to make that big a change?
Yeah, well, of course, I think he can make that decision himself. The two of them are very, very experienced. And look, it's easy for people watching, or if you're at the game and you're up in the media position or the commentary box looking down to see other options, to say, try and get it in the 10's hands as quick as you can. And look, it depends on a lot of things. On if your forwards are dominant and the ball is quick, ideally you want to try and really get it to the 10 as quick as you can, and he can make that crossfield kick decision or just punt from on the run, if you like. And England do that well. You know, George Ford does it really well when he gets the ball, because usually the ball is really quick. If someone's made a line break, they're over the gain line. So, of course, Johnny Sexton has that, can make those decisions himself. But it's just about getting that flow. Of course, the slower down box kicks happen when you don't get over the gain line. You're in your own 22 and you want to try and exit. So getting the balance right is the key. And like I said, bad kicks or the number of kicks don't really come into it when you win games and you win them well.
We had Sexton on Friday night talking to us from the bubble in Carton House, and we talked about what Ronan O'Gara had said previously, I think on the Tuesday or Wednesday here. He was talking about how there could be an extension to Sexton's career where somebody, ideally Joey Carberry, puts himself in the box seat as the number 10, and then Sexton becomes the finisher of games as opposed to the starter of games. Is this an ideal case scenario for us? Are we living in fantasy land if we think it'll actually work out nicely for us like that? Or is that something that, if you're the Irish rugby management, you're thinking, actually, you know what, we could nurse Sexton the whole way through to a World Cup where he is the person coming off the bench with 15 minutes to go, and what a great thing that would be to have in our arsenal if we wanted it.
Yeah, it depends. It's a game by game, tournament by tournament kind of situation. If Johnny Sexton is playing well, he should start. If he's not, doesn't have the same kind of energy or fitness or zip in himself, of course it's an option. You know, I've played on teams where you've had an experienced fly half coming on, and it's about game management. I've always said this, and I'm not an expert on it, but you want your 10 to manage the game. If you put you in the right areas, make the decisions when to pass, when to run, when to kick. And, you know, Sexton is a proven winner. His temperament and his drive and desire can never be questioned. So it just depends on the player himself. If that situation arose, I think if Joey Carberry was back, if Harry Byrne makes the step up, if somebody else kind of grabs hold of the reins there, of course it's an option. You can imagine if Ireland were in the next couple of seasons, and this is a transitional period where hopefully, you know, there's some young players have come into the team, and maybe there'll be a few more in the next period of time, that you're winning a game and you're trying to close out a game. And if you had that option, if Sexton didn't start and coming off the bench, well, you know, the body slows down a little bit for sure, but his experience and his temperament and ability to deal with pressure in big games would be a massive advantage and bonus to have going forward for sure. So, look, it's up to the coaches. I think first and foremost, you know, both the boys are being politically correct in what they're saying. They're saying the right things, but I'd have no issue with Johnny Sexton if he wasn't being selected. You don't just cast someone away, and I've seen it with many players over the years. Having an experience, you just cannot beat experience. But the team have to be playing well, Ger, and they have to be going in the right direction. And age was never an issue for me as regards viewing someone as saying they're too old. If they're playing well enough, and if they have, and particularly if they're training well enough, and we don't talk about this enough in sport. A lot of players and coaches see things that we don't see in training. And if they're producing it in training and they have that zip and energy, well, it doesn't really matter. You know, older players can still perform, albeit they may not be able to do it for the full duration of games. But there's massive value in having experience and temperament of guys who've been there, won and lost, experienced the good days, the bad days, different situations, and so I would see that, yeah, for sure, if he's not our starter in the next 2 to 3 years, that if he's still playing professional sport, he's still fit enough, I'd have no issue with him having him in around the group, because that influence and that experience can rub off on other players.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a conversation now because O'Gara brought it up and it was a good thing to talk about, but also because these contracts are all being decided now, and if that was something that you thought you were going to have a value in, then you could build something, you could bake some kind of performance-related clauses into a contract if he wants to go to the World Cup and you go to the World Cup, and it's about the long-term planning, really, and having it in your head that this is an option, as opposed to saying we are absolutely going to do this and you won't be our first choice. Because if he's the best player at the time, you know, fair play to him. And that's an amazing thing that he's managed to achieve, to be the best player. I just want to move on a little bit and talk about that kind of long-term stuff. We had Brian O'Driscoll on last week as well, and we were talking about the importance of this Six Nations. If you're the head coach right now of Ireland, O'Driscoll kind of just in passing made the point that, look, you're not going to sack your coach a year out from the World Cup. So essentially, get through this and they're kind of guaranteed to be in charge for the next World Cup, because that World Cup cycle will take on its own momentum. So don't experiment now. Win a few games, make sure you're still okay and the pressure is abated, and next year can look after itself. And then, therefore, that'll be another block and you'll be starting to plan for the World Cup, which makes this absolutely the single most important 5-6 weeks of Andy Farrell's coaching career.
Yeah, look, I don't. If Ireland had a good Six Nations this year and potentially won the championship, or everyone would be saying we've turned the corner and we're 2.5 years out from a World Cup. Can we do it in France? And will we get it wrong again? I think we're at a stage now, and sport can be ruthless for players and coaches. If Ireland did well here and did dreadful in next year's Six Nations, I don't see any reason why the coaches wouldn't be under pressure that they get a free pass, because I think Ireland are at that situation now where we have to make sure that do as much as we can to try and get to the knockout stages and beyond the quarterfinals in rugby in the Rugby World Cup in 2023. But you do it's like a player having a bad game, Ger. If they have 6 or 7 brilliant games and then they have 2 or 3 bad ones, there is a tendency to go back and say, look, we just got to find the form again in the player. He's been there, he's done that, and he's delivered. And it can be a tricky situation. But I think there's added pressure on Andy Farrell, Mike Catt in particular, as to what we've seen in the last 18 months to 2 years. And the evolution of the team and the way we're playing and some of the really disappointing results. I think we do scrutinize and analyze the team a lot, and sometimes, particularly, I get frustrated and angry at times when people kind of write them off and say we're finished and Irish rugby is this and that and the other thing, because we do have a small pool of players. We don't have the resources maybe and the power and the physical attributes of England, New Zealand, South Africa. And we're in a level below. And if we jump up to the top level and sit at that table for a period of time, that's fantastic. And we did that for a few years. We're in that level below now, and there's potential, obviously, to get up to the top table again. But and the World Cup story will keep going on unless we get to a semi-final or beyond. But I think it's the way we've played probably in the last period of time, and there is glimpses of change, and there is glimpses of more expansion and ambition within the players and the coaching team to get on the front foot again and to play with a bit more excitement and a bit more free flowing, which may suit them, because the game has changed a lot in the sense that the physicality has really come back into it. The kicking game, the defenses are on top. Rugby has become ponderous at times, and teams who are not maybe get physically dominated, they've got to find a way to go around the opposition. And so we're somewhere, we were still well able to be physical, but we have players who have ability to make line breaks, as I said, and stuff like that. So Ireland losing games isn't the end of the world, but I think sometimes it's the way we've lost them. So we have to try and get a little bit more excitement. So absolutely, because there's question marks about Andy Farrell. Is he good enough? Is he the man for the job? Can he manage this transition and get Ireland back to that top table again? He was there under Joe for so long. He would have learned a huge amount under Joe Schmidt. So there's a lot of scrutiny and pressure. If they have a good Six Nations, it'll be incredibly positive, and there'll be lots to build on. If it goes bad, well, question marks will arise about the coaching team.
And that's the ball game, I suppose. Some quick points to wrap up with here. The 40 minutes that Tyke Furlong got at the weekend, how important is that going to be?
Yeah, incredibly important. He's vital. He's world class when he's fit and strong. Hasn't played for a long period of time, so that was sufficient. I'm sure the message was don't play him any longer. Maybe Leo Cullen said maybe a little bit into the second half, but I think that's incredibly important. Good week's training, and I think he'll be back involved in the match day 23 for next week.
Harry Byrne played really well. How close is he to getting a look or a call in a meaningful way, and not just to kind of tackle bags?
I'm sure he'll train with them and he'll be involved. He's not a named in the Six Nation squad, but every time I see him, I just think there's something about him. There's a confidence and ability. He's big. He's physical. His kicking game is good, and he has that bit of X factor that you want. So I saw Will Greenwood tweeting about him. I saw Brian O'Driscoll tweeting about him. I looked on social media. Shane Williams was speaking after the game in an interview saying, this guy is the real deal and has the potential. Look, he's young. He probably needs more exposure with Leinster and at European level. It was a pity he missed that Northampton game in December where he was due to start. But I'd be incredibly excited about Harry Byrne, and I thought he was superb at the weekend. You got to look at the opposition as well, and you know, they're missing. They can't. Most teams, and we've said this a lot, can't cope with all their internationals away. Leinster, the one team that they just bring a different level with their perceived second string, and but he was very, very good at the weekend, Harry Byrne.
Okay, and then the last thing that's happened over the last 24, 48 hours or so is Australia stepping in to offer to host the Lions tour. It seems completely ridiculous, and then you think about it, actually they could have full stadiums and everybody might make a little bit of money and everybody might be happy about the fact that it's going on there. Is this a runner, do you think?
I think it is a runner. I don't know if logistically, people who were all booked to South Africa and booked in different hotels and different packages they were on, can they switch all that and bring them to Australia and get 30, 40, 50,000 for test matches? The logistics of that, I don't know how all that will work, but I think from having crowds at Lions matches would be, it's what it's all about. It's really important. I think having it in South Africa with no crowds for sure will give South Africa the TV money, and they're in desperate need for money. They're financially hamstrung at the moment and in a very, very serious situation. So they're desperate for some sort of a Lions tour to go ahead to at least get the TV money. To have the crowds would be incredible. And I think people, the first thing they think of here is, well, will Australia make money out of it? And they've come out and said, the CEO, Hamish McLennan, said, look, we don't want to make any money out of this. We just want to cover our costs. So there'll be stadium costs, and any money that would be generated from ticket sales and crowds being there, and the commercial activity would be split between Lions and South Africa. So is it a better solution for South Africa? Taking it out of the country would be disappointing for them, but playing it with crowds and actually getting more on top of the TV money would be a better situation. And you know, I just think to have crowds at a Lions series would be incredible. And otherwise, I just think it'd be very, very eerie, and I think it should be postponed otherwise. But then that hits into summer tours next year and stuff like that, and the World Cup kind of cycle. So I think it's a real runner. Will they go for it? I don't know. I think the players would be desperate to play any sort of a Lions series on both sides. And Rassie Erasmus spoke about it there to the media a week or two ago, saying that they're open to all options. So let's hope we have some sort of a tournament. I think it'd be great to see crowds, even if it was on Australia. The whole Lions thing is about going on the tour with the players, being part of something different. It would be a shame it's not in South Africa, but I think Australia would certainly make up for it.
All right, Alan, good stuff. We'll talk to you again on Friday. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.
Alan Quinlan giving us some thoughts there on the start of the Six Nations countdown. We'll obviously be keeping up with all the breaking news across the week on the OTB Sports app and, of course, on the evening show on Off the Ball and News Talk 2.